For $20 million, Prince Harry revealed he got frostbite on his willy, which he calls his todger, got assaulted by his brother, which he calls Willy, lost his virginity in a field to an older lady who is obsessed with horses, who called him a stallion even though he didn't last very long, so she spanked him, and revealed his father barely cared when his mother died. Do you think it was worth it? Sadly, the book Spare is not a reference to his love of 10-pin bowling as we had all hoped. Harry has hit out at the media for being antagonists, and like most people angry with the media, Harry has gone on many media interviews to promote the book. Harry wants to reconcile with his brother and father, who he blames for the strain on their relationships, and is trying to reconcile by giving public interviews exposing their dirty laundry. Almost literally, as he has revealed a lot about Willy, which, as I said, is what he calls his brother, and his todger, which is what he calls his penis. He revealed both him and Willy are circumcised. He also revealed his todger got frostbite, a term that shows his maturity, and that he lost his virginity to an older lady who liked horses and called him a stallion. He revealed that he had frostbite on his penis at Kate and Willy's wedding, which he had been suffering from for over a month and didn't get it checked, but Kate and Willy were the distraction at his wedding. Harry had a beard at his wedding, as well as facial hair, and the facial hair breaks with royal tradition, so Willy fought with him for over a week about it. Harry, who has had a beard for a long time, described it as the new Harry. Willy apparently also highlighted the beard is not allowed in military uniform. Harry is better than William though because he's in therapy, and so William fights because he's not in therapy, but Harry, as a more enlightened man, instead publicly exposes it in a book and TV interviews. Harry is upset that he believes members of the royal family fed news to the press, and we know this because Harry told us so in the press. Prince Harry talks about the compassion he has for his father Charles as a single father, and that he understood the difficulty that Charles must have faced, then tells us Charles didn't hug him and Charles didn't say the right things when telling Harry that his mother had died. Which I'm sure Charles probably says terrible, stupid things, but not quite compassionate there, is it? Charles supposedly told Willy and Harry, "Please boys, don't make my final years a misery," which Harry has shown great compassion for. Harry is critical of Camilla for, and I quote, playing the long game in her relationship with Charles. I mean, how disgusting, marrying the love of your life for the long term? How outrageous of her. He makes it clear he understands that Charles was forced to marry Diana but really wanted to marry Camilla. Yet he asked Charles not to marry Camilla. We asked him not to get married. He chose to, and that's his decision, but the two of them are very happy together. And yet Harry is upset Willy began to raise doubts about Meghan. However, Harry was perfectly fine to question his father's marriage. Prince Harry described Camilla as dangerous because there was open willingness on both sides to trade information with the press, he said, to the press. Harry was concerned that Camilla would be the wicked stepmother that he'd heard about in stories, which seems to suggest Harry is unaware Disney movies aren't real, and that he hasn't spent any time on the hub to see videos of what a real fake stepmother could be. He even went so far as to say with her on the way to being queen consort, there were going to be bodies left in the street because of that. Whilst also writing how he killed 25 people in Afghanistan, which he said he saw as chess pieces and not humans. Harry shows his compassion for Charles by outlining how he was forced to marry Diana despite Camilla being his true love, and yet he tried to stop their marriage. Harry also shows he has moved on and the compassion he has by calling the book Spare, in reference to at his birth, Harry alleges that Charles said, "Wonderful, now you've given me an heir and a spare, my work is done." Which, let's be honest, is way too funny for Charles to have actually said. If he did, it's unlikely that Harry would remember it given it was the day of his birth. But if he did, Prince Charles was way ahead of his time if he was doing stand-up comedy at his child's birth. Harry claims that Willy asked him to pretend that they didn't know each other in high school, whilst also outlining how the media had covered them his whole life and that somehow there would be people in England who didn't know who they were or that they were brothers. Prince Harry still believes in the monarch and wants it to continue, despite tearing it down and not understanding that in its most basic form, a monarch means the king is in charge, and that a prince is in fact below the king. So whilst he might be the fifth in line to the throne, that means he's in fifth place and not above the king or the future king. It's almost as if Prince Harry doesn't realize he was born a prince, the second most privileged position to be born into, and outside of being second to the king, you pretty much get everything you want. Who knows if the publisher's gonna make their money back and who's really gonna be buying this book with interest, but it's money well spent for the entertaining circus and delusion that the man born into the second most privileged place in society is in fact the world's biggest victim. No institution is immune from accountability or taking responsibility, he said, while taking no accountability for destroying his family for money. And he takes full responsibility for the famous incident where he wore a Nazi uniform by blaming it on Willie and Kay, by saying he called them and asked them whether he should dress up as a pilot or a Nazi. So it's entirely their fault that he called them with that as an idea. He said, "I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back." And he takes responsibility for that by saying if they want to reconcile, the ball is in their court. He said he wasn't stuck in the past, whilst telling the whole world about the past and making sure we all know how bad it was for him. I think there's probably a lot of people who will go, how could you ever forgive your family for what they've done? The biggest crime in this whole thing might be that Harry has somehow made the most unrelatable, easy to dislike people feel relatable and makes you feel sorry for them for having to deal with this spoilt brat.